When the Carter brothers joined the school team, Coach Harrington made it clear from day one, people like them had no place here. What Harrington didn't realize, though, was that their father was the new owner of the team, prepared to do whatever it took to protect his sons. His next move would shock even the most seasoned observers, but let's start from the beginning. Michael and James Carter, two brothers with an intense passion for basketball, were thrilled to get the chance to play for the school team. Their father, Marcus, always believed that sports would build their character, discipline, and perseverance. They eagerly awaited the first practices, confident that they would be able to prove themselves and earn a spot on the team. But their expectations soon collided with a harsh reality. As soon as they arrived at the first practice, Coach Jack Harrington cast them a brief look, then turned to the other players without even a greeting. The other team members exchanged glances, but nobody said anything. When practice began, Jack started giving out instructions, splitting players into groups to work on techniques. But when it was Michael and James' turn, he casually remarked, "You two practice over there for now. You'll be the ones passing the ball to the others." The brothers exchanged surprised glances, but complied. With each new practice, Harrington found reasons to sideline them. First, he had them retrieve balls, then assigned them exhausting, monotonous drills alone, denying them the chance to showcase their abilities alongside their teammates. A few days later, James couldn't hold back and asked, "Coach, why can't we practice with the team?" Harrington shot him a cold look and said, "You're still a long way from their level. Work on your basics for now." Despite the coach's contempt, the brothers tried to hide their hurt and focused on proving themselves. But one day, when James took a direct shot during practice, the coach stopped him, saying, "You're here to learn, not to show off. People like you don't understand what it means to have team spirit." The words "people like you" cut James to the core, leaving him feeling a mix of shame and anger for the first time. Michael, the older of the two, always tried to stay composed. He whispered to his brother, "Hang in there, we'll get through this." But that night, when the brothers got home, Michael couldn't hold back any longer. At dinner, he told their father about the coach's treatment. Marcus listened intently, his face calm, though something unusual flickered in his eyes. He asked gently, "Are you sure he's excluding you because you're different?" James nodded, unable to hide his bitterness. "He doesn't see us as part of the team, Dad. He doesn't like us." The news left Marcus in deep thought. He had always taught his sons to pursue their goals and fight through adversity. But this was different. His sons weren't simply facing a challenge in sports. They were being pushed aside for something they couldn't change. Marcus knew he couldn't allow this to continue. The next day, he attended practice, quietly observing the coach's every move. He saw how Jack deliberately avoided acknowledging his sons, emphasizing their lack of readiness, and making snide remarks to other players about how some people just don't belong. Marcus decided it was time to act. The day after yet another practice in which the Carter brothers were left out, Marcus Carter made his decision. He called his lawyers, signed the necessary documents, and officially became the team's owner. This was more than a business move. It was a way to protect his sons and change the ingrained system. Marcus decided to keep his ownership a secret until a special event he organized, an open practice session for journalists and parents. Expecting Harrington to follow standard conduct in front of the press, he hoped it would force the coach to rethink his approach and show respect to his sons. On the day of the event, the court filled with reporters and spectators. Harrington, noticing the cameras, appeared tense and annoyed, but quickly resumed his duties, trying not to reveal his displeasure. At this point, he had no idea who had invited the press, or why. Marcus watched the practice from the sidelines, standing near the reporters. He saw Harrington offering a forced greeting to the journalists before launching into praise for his strong players, while making no mention of Michael or James. When one of the reporters noticed the two young players in the far corner of the court and asked why they weren't training with the others, Harrington quickly changed the subject. "These boys are new. They're still learning the ropes, so it's best they practice separately for now." But before Harrington could say more, Marcus stepped forward and introduced himself loudly. "Hello, I'm Marcus Carter, the new team owner." he announced, and the crowd instantly buzzed with interest. Reporters exchanged glances, sensing a potential story. Harrington was stunned. He had no idea the team owner was the father of the two players he had been ignoring. Marcus took the microphone and, addressing everyone present, declared, "For me and for this team, it's crucial that there's room for every player, regardless of their background, appearance, or experience. Everyone deserves equal opportunity, and everyone deserves respect." He glanced at Harrington, whose hands clenched slowly, though his face remained tight and composed. Harrington realized that his actions would now be scrutinized, not just by the public, but by the team owner himself. After the event, Harrington tried to stop Marcus as he was leaving the court. "Listen, Marcus," he began, attempting to sound friendly. "We have our methods in this team, and we need to maintain discipline. You must understand that too much attention can lead to a loss of control over the players, and that could affect our results." Marcus looked at him coldly. "Jack, it's not your role to decide who's worthy and who isn't. Every player should have an equal shot, and I expect you to treat that as a given." Harrington felt his authority slipping away. He realized that the freedom he'd enjoyed was now under the owner's watchful eye, with every word and action under public scrutiny. The coach clenched his jaw and gave a brief nod, sensing that his control over the team was now in jeopardy. In the week following Marcus's announcement as the new team owner, the atmosphere at practices changed dramatically. Coach Harrington was forced to stay in line, but his resentment only grew stronger. At every opportunity, he found ways to make things harder for the Carter brothers. Michael and James noticed that the coach continued to humiliate them, making them do extra exhausting drills, throwing jabs about their supposed lack of preparation. One day, during a shooting practice, Harrington deliberately interrupted the session to publicly point out Michael's mistakes, even though the other players were making similar errors. "That's how games are lost, Michael. Maybe if you practiced like the others," he shouted, his voice dripping with disdain. At this moment, the rest of the team grew wary. Many players noticed that the coach's behavior was unfair. They began to understand that his criticisms had nothing to do with the brothers' skills. Meanwhile, reporters who had begun following the team closely were picking up on the unfolding drama. Stories about Harrington's bias were starting to circulate around town. The situation reached a breaking point during a game when Harrington left the brothers on the bench, even as the team desperately needed fresh players. Marcus watched from the stands, closely observing each of the coach's decisions. Finally, after a timeout, he approached Harrington and asked directly, "Why are you keeping two talented players on the bench when the others are exhausted?" Harrington frowned and replied coldly, "As the coach, I know best who's ready to play. These boys are just not at that level yet." His tone was full of hidden contempt, and Marcus could feel it. "If you don't put them in the game, how will they ever improve?" Marcus retorted. Harrington shrugged defiantly, insisting that they just aren't ready. Marcus didn't argue further, but after the game, he called Harrington in for a talk. Calm but firm, he said, "Jack, if you're unwilling to give every player an equal chance, I'll have to find someone who will. I want to see each of them prove themselves on the court, and that's your duty as a coach." Harrington realized he was cornered. Marcus's words were clear and final. Either he would adapt or someone else would take his place. Tensions in the team escalated rapidly after Marcus's talk with Harrington. The coach, feeling vulnerable, doubled down, pushing the Carter brothers even harder. During one practice, he decided to test their endurance, assigning them grueling drills while the other players trained normally. Michael and James gave everything they had, struggling to keep up with the punishing demands. After practice, Marcus approached his sons and asked why they looked so worn out. Michael, breathing heavily, tried to brush it off, but James quietly admitted, "He's just trying to grind us down, Dad. To him, we're not players, we're obstacles." Marcus realized it was time for more decisive action. At the next practice, he brought in a group of journalists and reporters who were already aware of his tensions with the coach. The reporters observed as Harrington continued to treat the brothers dismissively, ignoring their successes and nitpicking their smallest mistakes. At one point, A journalist directly asked the coach, "Why do you consider these players unfit?" Harrington responded that they lacked discipline and skills for a serious level. Seeing this, Marcus signaled to a journalist to press further. The reporter asked, "Don't you think this might be a matter of bias? After all, everyone on the field should be treated equally." Harrington said nothing, but it was clear his words and actions were now under intense scrutiny. Ultimately, with the story gaining traction and public pressure mounting, the school sports committee conducted an investigation. The findings were damning for Harrington. Multiple testimonies confirmed his discriminatory behavior, and the school administration decided to dismiss him. As Harrington left the gym for the last time, he crossed paths with Marcus, proudly stating, "You may have won, but my way would have been better." Marcus looked at him coolly and replied, "Better for you, maybe, but not for the team." With Harrington gone, the team welcomed a new coach, and Michael and James, emboldened by their father's support and the camaraderie of their teammates, finally felt like they belonged.